Welcome back to the History Shelf, everybody. This is Peg and my lovely wife, not yet, but soon to be, Martine.
Yes, we'll see how this goes.
Yes, we will see how this goes. We're going to be sharing a microphone. Let me just minimize that. This is our wrap-up video. I know many of you have been eagerly anticipating our reactions to the Marple of the Month that we began last month in October, Murder at the Vicarage.
Yes. Continue.
Okay.
Did you like it?
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that. So let me just do a couple of preliminaries. Let me hold up the book. There are different versions. I received a bunch of new versions from William Morrow. I read from this book. Martine read from these books from... it's also William Morrow. I guess they just kind of do reprints every now and then with some new covers.
Like blood from a stone.
Yes. So... we are going to get into Murder at the Vicarage. We're going to talk about the book first, and then we thought it'd be fun at the end to talk about different adaptations that we've watched, which we did some homework on this one, didn't we?
We did. Well, yeah, we did. But I grew up with Marple. My grandmother was a huge Miss Marple fan. Mm-hmm. I think she was half Miss Marple. And so my first Marple was actually The Mirror Cracked with Angela Lansbury, which looking back now is an odd adaptation or interpretation. So that was kind of my first entry point. Mm-hmm. And then the Joan Hickson book or series in 83, 84. And then, but this is the first time I've read them.
Right, so this is a journey for both of us, and we thought it'd be fun to do it together because we are a big fan of, British mysteries. We watch a lot of BBC things and different type of mysteries, detective shows, things like this. We've really gotten into them since we've known each other.
You want to move to the Cotswolds?
I want to move to the Cotswolds and
a minor.
To live in
a murder light village.
A murder light village, just cozy, where there's really not a lot of blood. There's not a lot of gore. But there's all, like an Agatha Raisin type of situation.
Yes.
I love Agatha Raisin as well. So we thought we'd just kind of close out talking about the fun different, adaptations and also get into who's your favorite Miss Marple, which I am starting to, I think I have a proclivity for one of them already. But for each book, we are going to watch an adaptation or two. All right. Yeah, so that's the plan. All right, so Murder at the Vicarage. We're going to start off with, Martine has a little bit of inside knowledge about the fact, I went in and looked at the books in order. I'm like, okay, which one is the first Marple, And it came up in many book lists as The Murder at the Vicarage, but the first book. But Martine says there's something that we see Miss Marple appears before The Murder at the Vicarage. So tell the kids at home here.
Do your homework. Stay in school. So this is from the same series, but this is the short stories.
So she appears in the short story first?
This is the first short story that she appears in, and it's the Tuesday Nightclub.
Okay, so that's like just a short story that...
It's to whet the appetite.
Whet the appetite. I wonder what made Agatha Christie want to continue writing Marple mysteries. Do you happen to know that, or is that something we can look into for a future episode?
I think I'm sure somebody else will chime in with a more informed opinion, but I think the whole premise behind Marple was that people tend to ignore some sections of society, in particular, perhaps women, in particular, perhaps women of a certain age, who tend to be quite sharp about what's going on around town. So that was kind of the premise of it. I also, my headcanon says that she was sick of Poirot.
Yes.
And he was so upfront. Mm-hmm. He kind of drives the process because it's all about him and his ego. I mean, I love Poirot. Mm-hmm. But Marple's kind of in the background, sort of going, oh, yeah. Like she's already 12 steps ahead, which is the fun part. Mm-hmm. But also the annoying part. Because even as a kid, I'd be like...
How does she know that?
When did you go to the library to find that out?
Yeah.
That part wasn't covered. You didn't play fair.
Oh, I see. I remember you telling me. Yeah, well, that comes into play for sure in both works of fiction, whether it's on the TV screen or in the book. If the author's not being upfront and honest with you about what their character's doing, then how can you can't guess along, right? So,
but in this one you can.
we can. Now, having said that, so the murder at the vicarage, see if you can find some of those maps that yours have. This book was interesting in that apparently
Map envy.
I have map envy because this newer release of The Murder at the Vicarage has one little map of the village.
Yeah.
And Martine said, well, my other books, my other editions had tons of maps.
Oh, well, not tons.
Okay, this is the only one that I saw. I'm going to hold it up here for the kids. There we go. Okay, so that kind of gives you a sense of where people were walking, what they were doing. See, this is the one I had.
two.
Do you have this one like this one? Oh, you had that one too.
3.
She has 3.
So if you couldn't follow along with Lord of the Rings and their maps,
Yeah.
Murder at the Vicarage is the book for you.
Oh, I take it back. There was another. Oh, I
You didn't read it at all. No.
I did.
No.
I did have another one. Okay, there was that one of where he was murdered. Oh, and by the way, I should say,
Like this.
I probably
And there
might
were
have been.
stores.
I might have fallen. No, I didn't. I should say at home, or to you guys at home, if you're wanting a spoiler-free review, it's not going to be here because we have to talk about what happened in the book. Because many of you read along, we've all come to the conclusion. We know who the killer was, so there will be spoilers. If you still want to read the book, maybe stop the video here, come back at another time when you finish the book and read along.
Having said that, the book is 90 years old, so
Well, but some people haven't read. I hadn't read it. I wanted to know what was going on. So the book finds us meeting the vicar, whose name is Len Clement.
love him.
He was a great character in this book. He had such a dry type of sardonic wit. I love the dialogue in this book. I loved how
Pissy.
he's kind of
He's kind of prissy and pissy.
yes.
I love it.
Yeah, and I loved how he and Griselda, his wife, of many junior years, but yet they are still very much in love. But I have to say, as we start to read the book, and there's this young man who's all handsome and charming, Lawrence Redding.
Who has Irish blood in him, evidently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah. So, you can kind of sense that, maybe Griselda is like flirtatious with him.
Yeah.
And
That she kind of likes pulling Len's chain a little bit about it.
she does, yeah. And I love the way they talk back and forth. It's very cute and very endearing early on. So early on, I was like, please don't let Griselda be a cheating wife. I don't want that. I didn't want that at all.
Kind of I like the resolution of that plot line.
I did too. Yeah. That was a really nice ending. And by the way, guys, I'm holding it just so that we're not trying to lean in. We can kind of relax a little bit. And so I'm sorry for the back and forth, but until we can figure out a dual podcasting system, this is how we're doing it. So then we meet our antagonist, or
Say one thing?
yes.
I love the ongoing war between him and Mary. I just loved
Say who Mary is.
Mary's the cook, and I just love Christie's descriptions of how she manages to simultaneously undercook and burn portions of the same dinner. And there's just this kind of cold war between them.
Look at her.
Hello.
Look who wants up. Someone wants to talk about Miss Marple. That would be Miss Daisy. She says I have nothing to say. She goes, yeah, I hate when you both burn and undercook my food. I'm just kidding. We don't do that. Hey, Daisy. So we meet Colonel Prothero.
I can't say that name.
And she cannot say Prothero, so I'll be saying Prothero throughout the book or this discussion of the book. He will soon be the body, Mr. Body,
Yeah.
as you were. So
Which they telegraph almost immediately when the vicar says, hey, the world would be a better place if.
yeah, foreshadowing big time.
Yeah.
Also, you can see that there might be some red herrings going on with someone stealing money from the church offering tray, or I don't know.
I just like how the vicar is just mired in the sort of in a fairly quiet, mediocre sort of life, and the comings and goings that are blown up to greater proportion because there's nothing going on in the village until this thing happens.
Yes.
And then it all boils over.
Yes, he's got a very quiet kind of, maybe, dare I say, dull existence until this happens.
Yeah.
But I would love it.
You'd love it.
I would love being a vicar in a tiny little village like that.
You'd be like, where the big news of the day is, where's the ball of yarn that went missing?
Yeah. Who's going to bake the cake for the social?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get back into it. So, you kind of get the sense early on, and of course, this being my first experience of Miss Marple, I'm wondering how other books will be in comparison. I did find, and I know that Bill Rudenberg kind of shared. He's hi Bill.
Hi Bill.
We know you've been waiting for this video to talk about Murder at the Vicarage. He's already way ahead of us. He's already finished November's title, which is what we'll announce at the end. But Body in the Library, which is the Body in the Library, I'm really looking forward to. He's
great, and the adaptation.
Yes, and he loved it.
It's a
different novel altogether. So I'm really curious. I'm really eager to jump into the Body in the Library to see what she changes up. Agatha Christie does here. I found with the Murder at the Vicarage, after Colonel Prothero is found shot, my immediate suspicions. Can I share this with you? I thought it was lettuce. Or Lettice, or romaine, or mixed greens, or whatever her name is. It's funny how in the movie adaptation, she's like, it's pronounced Lettice, but they don't do that in the book, do they? They're just, because I was like, Martine, is this pronounced, it can't be a real name. It has to be pronounced Lettice. She goes, no, it's lettuce. Who names it lettuce? British or strange? No offense to all you great Brits out there watching. But it was an odd name, and so, she seemed kind of flouncy, and she seemed, I don't know, she just seemed like she was a rotten kind of,
bored with it all.
And that she maybe was, a bored rich girl, and maybe she was just being really mean to her stepmother that she didn't need to be. Yeah. So I think right there, Agatha Christie and her characterization early on of lettuce was dead on because it threw me. It threw me off on the wrong scent. I thought, okay, this girl, I was kind of suspicious of her from the get-go. However, as we get towards the end, you actually see that she was quite level-headed.
And she was trying to figure out what was going on. Yeah.
Right.
But the other thing is Prothero is a real, he's not a nice person. So the nice thing about the conceit of the setup is that everybody really has a reason, if there is a reason ever, to do away with this guy.
Yeah, everyone has a motive.
Yeah, he's just a pain in the ass.
Pain in the ass, right. So I did find it hard to follow sometimes, and I think this, I was getting back to mentioning Bill, I think he had also said in a message to me, because we're also doing a buddy read of another book, that there was a lot of comings and goings, who was walking into the studio, who was near a window that had no view of this. So there were a lot, what did you call it? A locationality? What that word you used was great. There was a direction. We were just discussing it the other day, and there was just a lot of...
Whatever I said was brilliant.
It was brilliant, you guys. She said like locationality or directionality. Is it directionality?
I don't know. I know that acoustics play a part. Also,
acoustics.
Well, it turns out there's a recording, right?
Yes.
But it's kind of like who was within line sight of this?
Yes.
How many shots did you hear? When did you hear it? And how can we tie it to different things? And then, of course, the whole notion of the clock being put forward so that they're not running late all the time, which the vicar's always doing.
Yeah, and that threw me off.
The killer doesn't know that.
And the killer doesn't know that. So that was pretty big. So basically, for those who haven't read the book and would rather just hear our wrap-up, is that the vicar gets a phone call one day, right? Someone says, I need you to come here and meet me and talk to me. So he leaves his study inside the vicarage. When he comes back, the young man, Lawrence Redding, is running out looking very perplexed, very distraught. And because, the vicar, Clement, goes to meet someone, but that person never shows up. Okay. So you realize later on that was a false call. Someone wanted him out of there. Mm-hmm. So then he runs into Lawrence Redding, the young man, who Lettice may or may not be interested in.
She's certainly taking her clothes off.
Because he was doing her portrait. Mm-hmm. He was an artist, right?
Right. That's why the vicar is jealous of how the artist is spending time with his wife too.
Yes, yes. So Lawrence Redding comes running out, and he's like, "Oh, you'll find Prothero, all right," and then he basically makes it look like, and then like a day later, he goes to the police, right? And he says, "I'm the guy. I'm the one who shot them," because he goes when the vicar goes in, he sees, or Mary found him, right? And then she's like, "Sir, vicar, you've got a dead body in your study." It happens all the time.
Christie is like, that's a great title.
That is a great title.
Where am I?
There you go. See, you get used to it, and sometimes you don't. I still can't get the books in the screen. So then a day later, he's been shot in the head. And I think that's where the maps come in handy, because you can realize, oh, the window is here.
Yeah.
So if someone was on the outside of that window looking in, they wouldn't see the corner desk,
Yes.
So I think you do need those maps. Now, I don't know if this will continue into her other books, but I hope if she does do more maps, I hope they are just the movements of people will be easier to follow. I think they will be, because this book had a lot of, someone was coming down Old Hall Lane at this time or another, so there was a lot of timing that you had to get down to understand where everyone was. So I knew that I probably wouldn't guess correctly, because I'm like, look, she's going to probably throw some type of curveball in here, because she's a brilliant woman. And I was just like, but her brilliance in this case, and spoiler alert, is that it's, what do we call it? The most likely, like Occam's razor or something, the simplest explanation is oftentimes the most accurate, or the most,
If you hear the sound of hooves, chances are it's horses, not zebras.
Right.
Yeah.
So the whole novel, Inspector Slack, is it Slack?
Slack.
Slack was fun.
I love the inspectors.
Yeah, but let's
and their interactions with Marple. And if I can just cut ahead just a little bit of a spoiler. If you've seen the movie adaptations, I'm thinking specifically of the Hickson ones. You see the same actors reappear again as these characters, and so they go from this old woman to shit, it's Marple.
Yeah. And let me not neglect our main star here. It's all about Miss Marple. I've been talking about this book I've been talking about it as a Agatha Christie, but let's get into the actual character that she has created to solve these mysteries, and that is the wonderful little old lady pruning her garden over the hedgerow, and she can see everything.
Yes, but she's not spying. She's looking at birds.
That's right.
I've used that excuse myself.
That's right. So I have to say, I thought she was delightful. I thought it was funny how Griselda calls her that old cat in the beginning.
Yeah, but then they quickly team up.
And I was hoping I might see Griselda again, but I don't know if we do. But I think she was a fun character. So anyway, Miss Marple just seems to have her pulse on the comings and goings of this entire village.
Yeah.
And at first you sense that she is kind of bothersome, maybe a little bit to the vicar. But over time he's like, well, that woman actually knows what the hell she's talking about. She's got a bird's eye view, and we should be listening to her. Whereas Slack is just like, oh, God, here comes that woman again.
Well, the interesting thing is that at the beginning, it's not so much that she does anything. You hear about her from other people. So when you actually hear direct quotes, and she's quoted in the book, she's fine. Like, she's very astute, and she doesn't pull her punches. But she's not this old cat, or I know Griselda called her that, but it's set up. She is actually set up in a negative way before she actually appears in the book.
Right. So do you think that was intentional by Christie?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this book more than maybe others, because you have to set it up. Everybody underestimates this woman. And it's proved time and sorry, baby. Sorry. God, on camera violence towards puppies. I'm so sorry. But she's fine. She's fine. But it's kind of proven time and again in this story. Everybody sort of goes, meh, old women, or meh, Marple, or meh.
Right. And I think what Agatha Christie does is then tries to set out to prove them all wrong by showing how brilliant this woman is.
She just goes on her way. She already has half of it figured out.
She already does.
Yeah.
I think I'm looking forward to reading more of these Marple mysteries to see that sense of confidence maybe grow and her reputation to precede her even further.
Yes, and it does. You will.
And it does, and it will. So, but Marple had to start somewhere,
Yeah.
and
And you know what? You raise a really good point. That's a perfect basis of comparison with Poirot, because Poirot kind of comes in as a retired police officer. He comes in with an international reputation. So Marple is the exact opposite. She has nothing except for what the neighbors are saying about her, which
Right.
turns out to be untrue. Well, kind of true, but untrue, ultimately.
right. Also, the thing with this book, and maybe I don't know again if future books will show this or not, but she's got a wealth of secondary characters,
Yes.
either to throw us off the scent, or there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people. There's Mrs. Lestrange. Okay, I could not figure out who the hell this woman was, why she was there,
Yeah.
but that plays a huge part in the closing scenes in the book. Yeah, there's a lot of filler. There was a lot going on. I'm trying to look back at some of these things. I just love how the vicar is constantly drawn into this investigation.
Yes.
He can't get about his church duties at all. Oh, and then he gives that fiery sermon,
Yes.
kind of calling people out on their sins,
Yes.
and that really.
At that time, he thinks that his wife is involved. Right? Am I
Yeah, he's
right?
starting to feel like, oh God, is she actually having an affair on me?
me.
Yeah, but that she might have been the target of his ire in his sermon, but someone else in the audience took it very much to heart, and that plays a big role later on because, as we see, Lawrence Redding is having a torrid affair with Colonel Prothero's wife.
Colonel Prothero.
No.
Huge plot twist. Uh-oh.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Martine's going to have to edit and make sure that glitch didn't throw us off.
Should we stop it?
No, we're not stopping. It's still, well, we'll see. It'll still work.
Happens there.
I don't know. I need a whole new setup. I need a whole studio. Anyway, moving on. So Lawrence Redding is having a torrid affair, not with Colonel Prothero, but with Colonel Prothero's wife, Anne, who is, I think, a younger woman than Colonel Prothero was. And there's friction between Colonel Prothero's daughter, Lettuce. Mixed greens. I enjoy romaine. Yeah. She's not getting along with Anne, even though to everything that everyone else can observe, oh, Anne is just an angel to Lettuce, But we find out, or I think the vicar walks in on Lawrence Redding and Anne Prothero having a little torrid interlude in the studio. Yeah. So this all figures in, and, he gives advice to the young men. I think this was shortly before the murder. Nothing good is going to come from this. You need to end this. And so, like a day later, he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm gone. But then the body, or was this after he was cleared? Oh.
What were you going to say?
It was after he was cleared. See, the timing of things and events I can't keep kind of straight, but I know that at some point, Lawrence Redding turns himself in, right? Saying, I did it was my gun.
He's supposed to leave town. So that was all a setup that they were caught making out. The vicar was supposed to see that.
See, I didn't catch that. See, this is why she's here. She catches these things. Okay. But then he turns himself in and saying, I did it. But then the actual proof, the evidence, and then the gun.
The wife says, no.
Then the wife says, no, I did it.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, oh, you're both lying.
Yeah, and then they're both cleared because...
They're both cleared.
Yeah.
Now.
Which drives the doctor crazy.
The doctor, Dr. Stone. The archaeologist guy, the guy who's working in the barrow.
No, literally the medical doctor in town who says, no, that can't be. Because he knows that the body...
Had died at 6:30.
Yeah, they kind of say, the body is less than half an hour dead, which I'm like, wow, that's really CSI back in the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah, I don't know how you could be that exact back then, but anyway, I'm not here to kind of go over every sequence of events. I just want to hit the major things. But I think in this book, it was the genius of her to say, oh, these people were immediately guilty or they turned themselves in, but no, they didn't. They didn't. Mm-hmm. They were just trying to hide the fact that this was going on or protect each other. And it was probably Lettuce trying to set them up. But her genius is, I don't know whether to call it a false flag or what, but she basically was just like, guess what? No, they were guilty. Mm-hmm. And it turns out, why is this coming up on my screen? And as it turns out that Anne was the one that pulled the trigger. Yeah. See? It wasn't Lawrence Redding. After all, it still was Anne. Anne was the killer. And she did it pretty coldly. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I love how the fact that one of the things that Marple picked out, which was like, I saw them come out the studio. Mm-hmm. And apparently at this time they had said they had agreed to break up and he was going to leave. Mm-hmm. But when she saw them leave the shed or the studio together, Lawrence Redding and Anne Prothero, she said they both looked very kind of happy. Mm-hmm. And if you knew you were saying goodbye to someone, mm-hmm. you wouldn't be looking that way. So, Marple is genius in that she's not only noting the inconsistencies in dates and times, and the clock was pushed forward 20 minutes, and ever that, but she says in the book too, which I love, she's like, I am intrigued by human nature. And she was witnessing something of human nature that actually called out suspicion, that most people wouldn't have caught, because she loves reading about human nature.
I also liked how she has Miss Marple say, no, she wasn't carrying a gun. I saw the dress she was wearing. There's no way that she was carrying a gun. But yeah, I think there are deeper points here, because wasn't the backstory that Prothero's wife had known Redding previously?
I'm not recalling that.
Or is that from an adaptation? I'm getting that confused.
Now, see, we're going to get into that in a second, because if you haven't read the books but have watched a lot of Miss Marple on, was it PBS or whatever they did it on? Yeah. And if you remember them as well, in detail, you might be like, well, there's a discrepancy of what you're talking about, because actually the book and some of these adaptations, they changed quite a bit. And so it's kind of hard for us, because we did our homework. Like after we finished the book, we went and we stayed up late one night and watched 2 back-to-back adaptations. One with that first lady,
Joan Hickson.
That was her? No. The one that the watery-eyed lady.
Oh my God. Okay. So yes. So I showed.
You got to talk into the side.
Weird. So it's Geraldine McEwen. And so she played the first Miss Marple after Joan Hickson, which were big shoes to fill. And I know that there's somebody on Peggy's list here, in Peggy's audience, who that's her favorite Marple.
Geraldine McEwen. Right?
Yeah, I think I'm saying her last name right. It's definitely Geraldine.
Okay.
But then so we watched that first, because I do think that that's the poorer adaptation. And then we watched Joan Hickson. But I do have to say the actor who played the vicar in Geraldine's adaptation.
Was better.
Yeah, what is his name? I know he plays Percy in Blackadder 2, and that's all I see him as. So the vicar was actually the guy who invented Green, if you remember that series. Just a wonderful comedic actor, and I think that his talents lend themselves to the sort of sarcasm of the character and his narrative.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're kind of moving into the adaptations, so let me just wrap up the book real quick. Again, I loved how Miss Marple came into play more and more. Most of the book was about the vicar and Inspector Slack, and then all the run-ins with the different people that wanted to. They were constantly calling the vicar, like, "Will you come please see me? I need to tell you something." And he was constantly getting all this new information. Yes. The poor guy. But then Miss Marple would come around and be like, "Oh yeah, I already knew that. Yeah. I already knew this," and so she was on top of it.
I was gonna.
But let me just okay. Let me just wrap up. I thought as we neared the ending, and this is where the adaptation showed a strength, because the book didn't. It towards the end, after you realize who the killer was, it says there's like a wrap up. It says, well, they were arrested and this and that, and It does, but you don't see that action. None of that happens in the book. I think Agatha Christie just kind of stops it there. You know, like when we realize, who was the one that who took was it an overdose, or they wanted to make it look like an overdose, but he survived? Who was that kid? Wasn't he another guy at the vicarage?
The younger guy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he took the money from the thing,
Right.
and he felt guilty about it. Who was it? But in the adaptation, he was another clergyman, and I'm like, who is this?
The Roman not the guy. Yes, the guy with the nervous condition.
Well, who was that guy?
Hawes. Was it Hawes?
It was Hawes. Okay, so as they're trying to save Hawes, then
He was my suspect.
oh,
Yeah, because he was just such a neurotic, nervous, clearly troubled person.
yes, but that's not always another red herring there, right? She kind of so basically in the book it ends rather abruptly. You don't see the action of Anne and Lawrence being rearrested or whatever. They say they were going to set a trap. So they set the trap and they fell right into it. But we didn't get to see the action. I think that's a weakness in the book. So, I mean, just being honest. But overall, I loved the characters that she drew. I loved the dialogue. So smart.
So funny, too.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read most of this on a flight, and I was laughing openly. It's witty.
It's witty, and we love witty, anything witty, movies, books. So that was the book, and we're like, okay, so Anne Prothero did do it, and we're moving on to the next. However, so we went and did our research. We watched 2 back-to-back adaptations, and went to bed late one night. So let's start with the first one, which is the most recent iteration of Miss Marple, the Geraldine McEwen.
I feel like I should have the cast up so that I'm not getting any names incorrect.
Well, you could maybe search on my phone.
How do I do this with one hand free?
Okay. We'll just type in Geraldine McEwen in there.
All right.
So this lady is apparently the one who started after Joan Hickson. So I wonder, why did we start with that and not the Joan Hickson one first? She wanted to end on a better. Okay, that's what she did.
Yeah.
So
Excuse me.
all right. So I didn't really care for Geraldine McEwen because, like you said, it was a light and sparkly version of The Murder at the Vicarage.
Yes.
Or a light and sparkly version of Miss Marple. The cast was really good. I didn't like, they created some stuff out of whole cloth. Some backstory of Miss Marple having a World War I love. And you find out later that he was married. And I'm like, Miss Marple will never do that. So I said, first of all, that was a strike against that Miss Marple. I was like, no, I'm not down with that, because that is not even part of the book genre.
Draw the parallel between
Her and Anne.
the murdering couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it. And I thought too that Miss Marple, she kind of would look at people like, I think the actress was trying to communicate some sort of insouciance, if I may say so.
You can say that. What does that mean?
Just an insight into other people, like almost like you pick up on it instinctually, your insouciance of a.
She was a little too twinkly.
Well, she was too twinkly, but she sometimes would just stare at people with
that's right.
with her watery blue eyes, and I'm like, your watery blue eyes are freaking me out.
Listen, allergies are not a laughing matter, so
I think she was trying to communicate that she could see right through people, but this unsettled me. Whereas the Marple that I imagined from reading the book was more of a woman that actually fit Joan Hickson, the one that we watched, the second one we watched.
Yes.
She definitely seemed to be more of the I'm out in the garden, I'm serious,
Yes.
but I'm friendly, but I'm not Miss Twinkletoes,
Yes.
and she took her sleuthing very seriously.
Yes.
I like when she said at some point in the book, I'm just kicking, I'm raging at myself for how stupid I've been, or something like that,
Yes. And she says that a lot.
Okay.
You'll catch that in the next one too. That she's already like, 3 Steps. I love the next novel, but because it has my favorite character in it, Dolly Bantry.
Yes.
But and you've seen a version of that.
I have seen,
years ago.
yeah, because I was like, not Eddie, the other one from Ab Fab.
Joanna Lumley.
Yes, but what was her name in Ab Fab? Patsy Stone.
Yes.
Because I was like, oh my God, Patsy from Ab Fab is starring in this Miss Marple adaptation. So I'm looking forward to watching that again, but I don't really remember who the murderer was. So the body in the library will be a whole new thing for me. But in the end, we'll go back and finish up on the Joan Hickson, and then we'll have to wrap up our video because we're coming up on 40 minutes of fun talk. And if I've been doing all the talking, I apologize. Let's get you in here more.
No, that's fine. I will say the cast for both of the adaptations was wonderful, and it's Tim McInerney was the one I was thinking of for Lem. Len or Lem? Clement.
Len.
The vicar.
Len Clement, yes.
Because I just picture him as the vicar. Like, he was wonderful. And Rachel Sterling.
I love Rachel Sterling. She played Griselda.
Yeah, wonderful actresses and actors in both adaptations.
Yes, I agree. I thought they took a little bit too much freedom in the first one by creating some backstory about Miss Marple's lost love, and him being a married man. So I didn't care for that.
They do that in I think, your opinion will vary, but I found, because you're dealing with an elderly person, right? But it's something they don't do with Poirot. Like, Poirot's all over the world. He's in Egypt. He's in Paris. He's in wherever, right? But with Marple, they allow her to the Caribbean once, and then it's like at Bertram's, she gets to go to the seaside, and that's it. But they do pull in these other characters, and maybe it was just the PBS adaptation, but they pull in these younger characters so they can go motoring around the country to find things out and then report back to Marple, which kind of puts her in a passive position, which I don't really appreciate. But
turn the light on so you can see us better. Sorry. Oh, no. It's getting dark out now.
No, you look fine. Huh? Anyway.
So I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, Joan Hickson, I thought, was a really good representation of Miss Marple. I loved, there's another thing I wanted to talk about, and maybe you can tell me, having seen other adaptations. Now, I know we're going to be reading the books together, and that's a first. And and I'm only saying this because, I'm not only saying this because it was set within a vicarage, and the vicar, and then there's religion, but I'm sensing that Agatha Christie has big themes when she's writing, and this one was really heavy on morality. Obviously, he's a vicar and he's giving a sermon on sin and stuff, but I think I've heard, and I know that she's done this in the Poirot series. And in fact, Martine has educated me deeply about Poirot and how, we have seen different actors play him. We've seen the different adaptations of Poirot. And what has come across to me is, like, and Martine has told me, when you see him angry, he is grieved in his spirit when he sees human beings doing these horrible things to each other, and he has a deep sense of morality and right and wrong, and I think it comes through from Christie into Miss Marple as well. Can you speak to that?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Barb. I absolutely do, and I think it's one of the reasons I like this character so much is that she. What do they say about her? That for a woman who's only seen the village around her, that she doesn't have a sense of the world, but she knows the village around her, and that's her microcosm. That is her universe. But I like that she is so. It's that same sense of not righteousness in a self-righteous way, but sort of that being. I mean, Poirot's kind of a priest almost in his later cases. Yeah. But that sense of anger and indignation, she doesn't have that. I think what she has is the kind of pragmatism and not cynicism, but the realistic attitude of somebody who has seen death and takes it so seriously, doesn't even joke about it. And that's where the fluffy old lady stops, when she refuses to joke around with those lines. Those are absolute lines for her. And so I do think that Christie does use morality throughout her stories. Absolutely.
And I love that. I love that aspect. I love books that aren't afraid to put things like that in black and white. You know, and in this day and age that we live in, it's just everything's 50 Shades of Gray now, and I don't mean in that that horrible that book sense, but you know what I mean. It's like, oh, but this person has, and let's get back to a time where right was right and wrong was wrong. Can we do that?
But I will say that Len kind of changes throughout the novel because he goes from having these small town concerns to then being faced with murder. People lying, people having different problems that he never envisioned being around him in his reality, and it really changes who he is as he is forced to kind of deconstruct his perfect life. It's a very interesting transformation that he goes on.
Yes, and it is. And I wish there was a follow-up so we could see, because we know at the end that Griselda tells him that, you won't be able to call me kid anymore or whatever, because you're pretty soon you're going to be having one of your own. And he seems to light up and he's like, I adore you. And, but you wonder how his own ministering to people might change after this whole ordeal that the whole village went through in St. Mary Mead.
Yes.
Which is where it was set. I should have said that. And is that where she lives, except for a few Johns? So she lives in St. Mary Mead. Does the vicar make an appearance in any of these other books? I mean, she lives right across shares a yard with the guy.
Yeah, I know.
You'd think you'd hear about the vicar again.
I don't think so.
But I think overall, this was a great success. It got Daisy laying on my arm, so I can't really lift it. The Murder at the Vicarage. Let's go and get it up close. So that will lead us into our next read,
Which I have outside.
which she has outside.
You got this one.
I have this one. And this is like a slimmer. Yep, those are those. And then we're starting this month, The Body in the Library. It's a very slim read. I could probably finish this in a weekend.
Because that's actually a 2-part episode for Hickson. It's a 2-part story.
So I wonder how they balloon it out. Do they make up some stuff?
It's a really complex plot line.
It is?
Well, the logistics of it are, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to reading this. Yeah. Excuse me. I just had to. So I'm looking forward to reading this and watching the adaptations. I look forward to seeing Joanna Lumley.
Yes.
Because she loves Miss Marple. She's like, let's call Miss Marple over.
I know. And I love the actress, and I'm blanking on her name now, who plays Dolly to Joan Hickson, because she does reappear.
Oh, nice.
And her husband, I think her husband, definitely Dolly. Yeah. And I love their friendship. Because Dolly is all ready to go off on a grand adventure, or she has a great line. She's like, "You're marvelous, Jane. You're marvelous." But she's ready to say, "Oh, Jane's already got it picked out. She knows exactly who did it." And Marple's like, "Now, Dolly, don't." So I love their relationship.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's so much to look forward to.
And she appears in The Mirror Cracked as well.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, those are our concluding thoughts then on Murder at the Vicarage. That one is a wrap. Did you enjoy our adventure?
Yes, I did. It was fun. You can't go wrong with Marple. You just can't.
You can't.
She's wonderful.
And Agatha Christie in general. I mean, it's time well spent.
Yeah, and you can see how her writing lends itself to constant reinvention and, just generational reinvention, that you can pull different people in from different areas and they can fulfill the same purpose as far as characters go. Mm-hmm. I mean, she really set things up in such a scalable way that you can have an Agatha Christie party and everybody knows who the archetypes are, but somehow she makes it work without it being trite or improbable.
Oh, she was just a genius.
Yeah.
What a treasure. I was going to say national treasure, but a national treasure for England and a global treasure for the rest of us. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap this one up. Thanks for watching our wrap-up video on the Murder at the Vicarage. Please join us for The Body in the Library, and we should have our wrap-up video more on time at the end of this month because we both had travel for work, and so we wanted to have it done by Halloween, but she had to leave the next morning, and we just didn't even have time. So thanks for waiting for this delayed wrap-up. We will be on track for Body in the Library at the end of November.
And hopefully the video is not acting up, and that this will get right out to you. And thank you, Daisy, for guest starring.
She's in my lap,
a
yeah.
portion of the day.
She's guest starring. So until next time, everybody, enjoy our trip with Miss Marple. And please comment below. We want to know what you're thinking about all of this. We want to know what you thought of the book, of the characters, of Miss Marple. Also, the adaptations, the ones you've seen, which ones you really like. Just chime in. We really want to have a dialogue with everybody because this is a lot of fun for us.
Yeah. I'm reading the new short stories right now, and I can't wait to see what they do with those. I know that there are going to be television adaptations. I don't know who's going to be in them. So yeah, don't mess with old ladies. They know what's up.
They know what's up. And should I also show something else that came in?
Sure.
There's a hardcover down there of I can't. Can you look under that book called Clytemnestra? Sorry, guys. This might be worth your while. I'll keep going. There it is. So this is a new hardcover put out by William and Morrow. They also sent it to me. These are the 12 new. Now,
These covers, by the way.
Yes. Now, is this what you were talking about? The new mysteries, right? So I have these. Thank you, Daniela at William Morrow. I think it's HarperCollins imprint. Anyway, thank you for sending me all of these books. Yeah. And this is the new one that's out. It's in hardcover. This covers all the new mysteries. And you said you're reading these right now?
Yeah.
And you have paperback version, right?
I do.
Okay.
And they're also on Audible, so I've been listening to them as well. And the collection of voices that they have are great. I'm listening to Alex Kingston narrate right now, and she's wonderful.
Yeah, sorry, honey, I didn't hold that up to your mouth there.
I just said something wonderful again. So.
So you know what? After we're done reading all of the standalone novels, how about we wrap up with the 12 new mysteries?
Yeah, and I was also thinking if you guys are digging this and there is an active discussion or conversation going on, if I can get this equipment to work correctly, I floated the idea of doing a live stream, just so that we could talk, kind of have more of a conversation in person. Just FYI.
Yeah, we're thinking about doing that. If you would like to be a part of the live stream, we just want to make sure that the sound is good, that you can hear us on this microphone okay during a live stream.
What?
We could do that. And, I could monitor questions that are coming in or comments, and we can just kind of riff off each other. I think that might be more fun. But we wanted to float the idea to you first. But if you agree, then I think the Body in the Library could be a live stream. And it's, and then it's archived. You can still watch it anytime after that.
Yeah, it puts the onus on me to get the equipment working correctly.
Well, we can do a little test on the live stream. Anyway, we'll talk about it on our end.
Yes.
We'll let you go. We're coming up on 50 minutes. I hope you enjoyed our video. It's our first one together. Aside from our Desert Island books, where Martine made a surprise guest visit on Sean Standfast's channel. So if you haven't checked out that video, I'll try to link that below as well if you want to check that one out. We talked, just tons of stuff.
Books, movies.
Books, movies. That's what we do. All right. So, thank you, BookTube. We are going to get this loaded for you, and we will see you soon for The Body in the Library.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Bye.